Well, okay, we are live with Genesis Office Hours number 22. We were delayed with technical difficulties, and I really thought that Daniel just didn't have his stuff together. I mean, he's a smart guy, but I thought maybe he just doesn't know how to work a microphone, didn't know how to adjust sound. Well, it turns out my sound was muted.
We're
So
sitting here like you can't. I tried 3 different microphones. And like I see my sound meter going up and down. I didn't get it, but
Well, apologies for making that more complex than it actually needed to be. But welcome aboard.
welcome. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. And for anybody that's tuned in, you can communicate with Daniel and I via Twitter by using the hashtag GOHChat, and shoot us a message, shoot us your comments, shoot us your questions, and we'll talk about those while we're on the air. So I'm going to let Daniel do a formal introduction of himself. But here's the deal. Daniel does something called WooCommerce Office Hours. And I was chatting with him about it and kind of, getting a feel for how that podcast was going. And it was basically, it gets on, covers a specific topic around WooCommerce, and then answers people's questions live on the air. And I thought, that sounds like a fantastic idea. So Daniel is actually, you're the inspiration behind Genesis Office Hours.
Wow.
So thanks.
That's awesome. I wanted you to say I'm the wind beneath your wings, but
I was actually going to grab the mic and did you ever know that you're my hero? I'll get the rest to you later.
Okay.
Yeah, we got our lighters.
Where's your lighter?
But yeah, why don't introduce yourself for our listeners?
Cool. Well, I'm gonna put my headphones back in since we got our sound stuff cleared up. All right, so now you should be hearing me. I'm gonna put my headphones back in. So I am Daniel Espinoza, and I am a WordPress plugin developer, and I focus on WooCommerce and particularly, but really any e-commerce site. So I've been freelance doing e-commerce sites for now about almost 6 years. So it'll be 6 years. Before then, I worked in IT departments at a bank and an insurance company. So very large companies. Not a lot of interesting stuff going on there. So my wife and I had our first kiddo, and she came home to stay with the kid, and I saw how much fun they were having. So I decided, I'm gonna start my own company, try and work on my own, and here I am 6 years later. So my sort of claim to fame with WooCommerce is I built the first WooCommerce commercial plugin, which was authorized.net payment gateway, and that was back in 2011. So I've been building plugins for it ever since then. And after I saw how that first plugin went, I got hooked on building commercial plugins and selling those. So I really like the product space and building pieces of code that people can buy and get instant value from, and then supporting those plugins. So that's what I've been doing since then.
Cool. So you are. I mean, is the term Woo Ninja like? Is it like programming where there's certain reserved words that you cannot use? Like, I mean, can you call yourself a Woo Ninja, or is that for somebody else?
That's actually for somebody else, and I was a Woo Ninja at a time. I worked for Woo Themes for about 15 months. Last year, it's sort of part of the digital tent making story. The story arc that my wife and I have been living of. We got out of we had this goal of traveling with our family and had a goal of being location independent, and part of that, sort of the precursor to that, was to get debt free. And so we worked really hard to pay off our debt, and building plugins was doing well, but it wasn't doing so well that we get out of debt very quickly. So we said, okay, how can we supercharge this? So I took a support job as a Woo Ninja, working for Woo Themes, and I did mostly support for WooCommerce plugins. And so that increased our income, helped us get out of debt. And then last year I sold a couple of my plugins. So that first plugin that I built, I sold that to sold that to another company, and that paid off all our debt, and then let us proceed on to the next step of being location independent and being digital tent makers. So I don't currently call myself Woo Ninja because that's reserved for the guys and gals who work for Woo Themes and sort of are in the trenches with support and development, for that company. So I also shy away from the ninja part as well, just because you can hear me coming from a mile away. I am not sleek. I am not silent. I'm sort of the anti-ninja. So maybe I'll take that on now. Anti-ninja.
Anti-ninja. Maybe I can just call you Woo-Noza.
Woo-Noza, that works too.
You first came on my radar. I kind of seen you around the Twitter sphere, and then you wrote a blog post maybe a year or two ago. I'll have to find it and put it in the show notes later. But basically explaining how you sold those plugins to get out of debt. And I loved the story you told, and I loved you just kind of laid it all on the table. You're like, this is the state of the financial union. This is what we need to do to get where we want to be, and it's just such a practical approach to business and finances, and have a lot of respect from you or for you since I read that article, and now having the opportunity to know you better and actually get to hang out with you a little bit at Beach Press. I mean, it kind of tanked my opinion of you.
Yeah, it's always a downer after that initial high, I guess.
Yeah, I had you way up here on this pedestal, but
yeah.
After seeing what your hair looks like in the morning, it was.
Yeah, well, that's because Justin put me on the. I signed up so late. I got put on the couch in the common room. So those guys at Beach Press stayed up really late, and so
Yeah, earplugs. Earplugs were my friend.
Yeah.
Well, I want to. The whole digital tent maker. Digital tent making, is that a reference to Paul of the Bible?
It is, yeah. So we Googled digital tent making probably last year and found one article by Saddington who talked about tent making. He did tent blogging, so he sort of did a portmanteau of tent making and blogging, so tent blogging. And we took it to digital tent making. Just we like to call it. We like to say that Wi-Fi is the new leather. So the example being Paul in the Bible, he built tents while he was doing his missionary trips, and so he supported himself while serving others. And so our story is that my wife and I did traditional jobs and did short-term mission trips, but we always wanted to travel longer or have a little bit more flexibility, and so that's sort of where the digital part came in of running our business online, so that we could run it from anywhere in the world, and then have more time and flexibility to do service projects and stuff like that. So that's definitely the reference.
Cool. I love that idea of, or just you said it so well, of being able to support yourself while you're serving others. So I've got a few more questions for you, but do want to let you guys who are listening. Please feel free to submit questions to Daniel, and they can be personal or about WooCommerce and using WooCommerce with Genesis, and we'll get on to some more specifics of that later. But Daniel, I was hoping you could share kind of your recent trial run of living with your family on the move, so to speak, and how that went.
So earlier this spring, sort of after the getting out of debt part, the next step was selling our house. So we had a very large, 2,500 square foot house in San Antonio, and we didn't want to travel and maintain that household, so we decided, we're going to sell it, we're going to downsize all of our stuff, we're going to move into an apartment, and possibly in the future, nix the apartment altogether and be totally nomadic. So after selling the house, we decided to take our first trip, which turned out to be an 8-week trip in Europe through 3 cities: London, Berlin, and Paris. And it was also sort of a victory tour of just this process of getting out of debt, setting up a business, getting to where we could live, this life that we wanted. And so we sort of chose cities that we'd wanted to live in. So and the theme of it, the overall theme when choosing this, was really living urban. We wanted to live without a car, We wanted to live in large urban areas, and sort of experience that. And I think it was a great trial run. So I have 3 kids, so there was the 5 of us, and we also brought a nanny with us to help with just if you have kids, you understand understand what they require. Just this 24/7 time commitment. But I also needed to get work done, and then we also wanted the opportunity to go around and explore the city, just my wife and I. So nanny was the best solution to that, instead of trying to find sort of local childcare options. But it was a great trial run. We really enjoyed our time there, and we're looking forward to getting back on the road. So we came back from that at the beginning of May, and we've been spending the summer in Spanish class learning language, because we found out while we were there that although quite a few people speak English, and they'll talk to you, and they're quite fluent. There's only a certain level that you can go with people if you are not fluent in their language. And also, if you get outside of the central zone or outside of the tourist areas, fewer people speak English. So we thought, what's the closest language that we are to being conversant in, and that's Spanish. So we're currently taking Spanish 4 days a week for 90 minutes, and my wife and I take it, and then the kids get some lessons, and so we're really committed to getting fluent and conversant in a language, and then going to Mexico or Argentina, or probably go back to Spain and spending several months there just connecting with people.
Awesome. So. I'm going to ask you a nuts and bolts question.
Sure.
About budgeting. So did you kind of take the whole of what your finances were in terms of cost of maintaining a home, vehicle, all of that, and set a budget off of that for your traveling, like what it took to your family for a day?
Right. So what does it cost to do this, travel and maintain a household? So I did the numbers. My wife and I have this phrase that we, always comes back to numbers. We're trying to make a decision. I always just tell her, show me the numbers, because in my idea, just the numbers will speak the answer. If you can do this or can't. So I ran the numbers on what would it be to maintain our suburban house and also live on the road, and then I ran the numbers on maintaining our apartment and living on the road. So I think our house was probably, and I blog about our debt reduction and numbers all the time, so I don't really care talking about them, because I think I watched Sarah J. Bray on a podcast years ago, and she's like, nobody talks about numbers, and numbers speak to me, so that's why I just share real numbers. So maintaining our suburban house was probably going to be around $4,500, $5,000 a month. So if you count that cost, and then on top of that, living in Paris or London or wherever, even in Thailand or something like that, it's just that cost plus more, and you have to maintain that every month in order to live. So getting rid of the house, reduced that cost of living, and it also reduced to just an apartment. An apartment's probably closer to $2,500, $2,000 a month. And then now that we have less stuff and less cost, we could actually knock that out and then just only have the cost of what it takes to live in another country. So it's a funny thing. Most of the digital nomads or location independent people that I see online are single, or they're maybe a husband and a wife, and very few are families or traveling families. So there are some, but and there's actually a good friend of mine, Paul Cortman, is a digital nomad, and he lived I think he left in February, and he's been gone since, traveling around the world. So the numbers that you see for maintaining living abroad usually have to double or triple when you're talking about a family. So a family of 5, when we're traveling, it costs a little bit different. So it really just comes down to location. Where are you going to live, and how long are you going to stay? We do something called slow travel, which just means that we like to stay in one place for at least 3 weeks to a month. Fast travel would be more of going to a place and staying there for 5 to 10 days. So if you take the total cost of getting there and staying there and divide it by the number of days, like your cost for going to Paris for 5 days is going to be really expensive on a per day basis compared to going there and staying for 4 to 8 weeks. If you stay, because the big cost is those flights. The flights are your largest cost normally. So we like to slow travel, and it also helps us to soak in culture and to connect with people who are there, and to acclimate to time zones. Just a lot of benefits to slow travel. So, but yeah, the budget or the cost of your trip is really going to depend on your location. So we knew we could have spent a lot less if we had traveled east to Asia, to Thailand, or Saigon or Bali, where a lot of digital nomads are. But we, since our kids are so small, we didn't want to handle the sort of public transportation, options there with small kids. It was just sort of we're going to try Europe first, see, because we thought we might hate it. Maybe we'd hate it and we'd never want to travel again. We didn't know. So again, it was just that first trial run that we did.
Cool. I love that. I love that. What a cool experience for your kids to have at that age. Mm-hmm. And just for anybody that's listening, if you want to know more, check out Daniel's blog for sort of the nuts and bolts of how he makes that happen. But got some questions coming in. One from Jackie. Let's talk about your plugin. So you mentioned your first plugin for WooCommerce, which is Authorize.net payment gateway. What else you got under your belt?
So I love payment gateways. They are easy to create, and every e-commerce site needs a way to get money, right? Or else you're not in business. So they're all sort of under the hood. There's hardly any CSS or any HTML that is presented to the user. So they're really easy to create, and they sell pretty well, and they're easy to maintain. And so these are my these are my beautiful plugins because they sell and they have like zero support requests. They either work or they don't. So once you get them working, they just continue to sell, and then you upgrade them. So I've created, I think, about 10 or 11 payment gateway plugins. Now this is for WooCommerce. I also created several for JigoShop, and then I sold off all of my JigoShop plugins when I went to work for Woo. So this sort of I divested out of one platform to focus on one because I was working for the company. So then I've also created a couple of integration plugins with accounting software. So I created a EDD, Easy Digital Downloads to FreshBooks plugin, and I also have WooCommerce to Xero. It's Xero, and there are cloud accounting platforms. So you're running your e-commerce shop and you want to get your data over to your bookkeeper. Those are great solutions to, they save you time for data entry, and they'll just automatically sync up your books so that you can get them, get all the numbers out of it. So. And then I do quite a few custom plugins. So the other part of my business right now is I'm doing a lot of consulting work where I'll create custom plugins for customers who need, they have a very unique e-commerce site and they need some custom functionality that you can't get out of the box from WooCommerce or out of the box with any of the add-on plugins. Okay.
Well, I've said on the show before that don't really like e-commerce sites because of the level of complexity involved in dealing with payment gateways. What's that?
That's a gasp.
Oh no! But a question from Ben. He says he steered clear of e-commerce, thinking that finance and the payment side will be a coding kind of nightmare. Is that like for the uninitiated, and I'll throw myself in the uninitiated bus, or that we just feel like e-commerce is this mountain that we don't want to tackle. Can you debunk some of the myths of the difficulties of working with a plugin like WooCommerce and payment gateways?
Sure, I can. So two things. One, e-commerce has come a long way in the past. Since I started doing e-commerce sites in 2008, it's come a long way. There and the reasons are there's a lot of money in it, and obviously because you're selling things. And as far as payment gateways and security, there is in the olden days, you had to code your back in my day, you had to code your own payment gateway to an API with no documentation. But since the olden days, we've had Stripe, we have you know um, different APIs that are so easy to use and implement that you have multiple options for payment and from the security aspect, you can use an off-site payment processor. Or Stripe has their Stripe.js option, which has it's a bit more of a secure way to check out. There's a lot of different options for collecting payments and for implementing them, which really you don't need to be concerned about the underlying API or the nuts and bolts. You can just implement a plugin and sort of turn it on and start accepting payments. So because of the growth of e-commerce, there's been a lot of players come in to make things easier for developers like yourself to just implement a plugin and then hook up some API keys and then start collecting payments. So things have gotten a lot easier and things have gotten a lot better with plugins like WooCommerce, EDD, and just all of the offerings. And the second thing I was going to say was just that mainly that offsite payment processing. The people I get asked quite a bit about PCI compliance and how do you deal with security, and really it's really up to you. If you want to run an on-site payment processor, there's strategies for doing that. And then if you just want to sort of let somebody else handle the collecting of payments and then just report back, if an order was accepted or denied, you can do that as well, and you can just let an off-site payment processor handle that for you. And those are integrated with the major e-commerce plugins.
Do you have any tips for, let's say a client comes to me and hey Carrie, I need to sell widgets, and you can't really even use the word widgets anymore because that means something specific in WordPress. I want to sell T-shirts. So it's not a digital product. So I'm going to easy digital downloads. I love, but since it's a physical product, I'll go to look at WooCommerce or such. Mm-hmm. How do I pick a payment gateway? What are any tips for somebody like me if we need to, how do we know if it should be Stripe or PayPal or Authorize.net or?
Mm-hmm. So again, in the olden days, you had to go through an underwriting process. I mean, it was like getting married to get a payment gateway. They had to know your maiden name. They had to know all this, dossier of information about you.
Do you have a maiden name?
Yeah, I do. It's the same as my married name. But they had to know all this information about you. They had to come see your physical, place you do business. I literally had a lady come and look at my bedroom, and I'm like, "This is where I do business." Just so all right, you can get a payment gateway. And she took a picture. It's really awkward, but you had to go through this.
Wait, back up the bus. You had some woman in your bedroom that took a photo to verify that you could make a payment gateway for her?
So that I could get one for my business, so I could take online payments.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that still is awkward.
It was awkward. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure. I asked my wife. I said, should I put up my business name on the wall in paper or something? Should I make it look like a business? I don't know. Something just blew up. I'm really not sure what that was. Great. So, okay, I think I just flipped a breaker or something.
Oh, is everything all right?
I'm still online. So anyway.
If I see smoke come up behind you, I'll warn you.
Okay, awesome.
But not until the last possible moment, because this is live television.
Definitely. So so since then, you can get a payment gateway again with Stripe by filling out a form online, and they approve you like that. So if you're starting from ground zero and you're choosing which payment gateway to go to, I used to suggest that people check with whoever their business bank was. So to start a business, you do a DBA, you create an LLC, and you have to have a business account at a bank. I'd suggest see if they have a payment gateway that they can offer you a deal on the rates, because it's really going to come down to how much money are you going to have to pay, how many in fees to collect money through your payment gateway. But that's no longer the case really, because you can go with a Stripe or you can go with maybe not even an authorized.net, Braintree, and get better rates starting off. So I really now I just send everybody to Stripe because the main, especially developers, they've done great marketing, touting themselves as payments for developers, and they have beautiful documentation, they have a great API, and really good support. So and the fees are they're fine. I mean they're market rate, and you need to know you're not going to be negotiating on fees until you get tens of thousands of dollars a month in traffic. No one's going to discount you fees on selling 3 T-shirts a month. They don't care. So it's not big time. So yeah, so really I just point people to Stripe because it's really easy to sign up. They're not going to come and invade your bedroom and take pictures.
That's a real bonus because we try to keep cameras out of there.
Yeah.
But that's for Genesis after hours. I use Stripe for myself, and then for myself a couple of times over, I suppose. But yeah, I love it. It's very easy to work with. I just remember, like you said, in the olden days, trying to go through the documentation, and this is the monthly fee, and this is the per transaction fee, and all these complexities just made me kind of want to run screaming.
Yeah. But really,
what's that?
Oh, but really, you just want to hook it up and then focus on your business. Focus on selling stuff.
Exactly. Had a question from Greg on themes that work well with WooCommerce, and there are several. The newest is called Adorn, and it was just released this week by Lauren from Restored 316, and it has some built-in. And really, when we talk about integration with WooCommerce, what we're talking about is a theme that's pre-styled to make WooCommerce templates look native, if you will, in your theme, or pick up your theme styles. Exactly. So Adorn by Lauren, pretty darn cute designs, has a couple. There's, I think, one called Envy that's fairly new, that's a little more, not so feminine as the other themes I just mentioned. But I think, and if you get outside of the Genesis realm, is Woo Themes the place to go for WooCommerce themes, or are they just kind of all over in various marketplaces?
Yeah, so I just had this conversation earlier in the week. I usually suggest Woo Themes first. They build a plugin. They build great themes. They have the most compatible themes out there. And like you said, when you talk about compatibility, WooCommerce uses a template system and includes its own styling. So it has its own styling of buttons and input fields and the product pages to make it look presentable out of the box. And you can, some people like that, some people don't, and you can turn all of that off and start with a blank slate if you'd like. But it's a bit of a challenge for a regular user. But for a theme developer, you may want to, definitely do that to where you make the site look exactly like, your intended theme. So really, when you're talking about compatibility, you're talking about, how does it make WooCommerce fit, the eCommerce functions fit into the overall theme of the site. So Woo Themes does that great. There are a few ThemeForest themes that I've seen do it well, and some that really do a terrible job as far as compatibility. I haven't seen Lauren's theme yet, but I'd love to see a link and go look at it. When you're checking on theme compatibility, the best thing to do is to look at all of the eCommerce pages: the category page, product page, checkout, the account, the cart page, and just see if it looks out of place. If it looks like they're trying to shoehorn something in there that just ain't supposed to be there, then you've got a problem. Plus, you're probably not gonna be able to see this on a demo site. But WooCommerce has a report internally under WooCommerce status. Status report, and it'll tell you how many theme files are overridden by the current theme. You want that list to be as small as possible. If the theme comes in and takes all of Woo Themes templates and just overrides them and rearranges everything, that's that's going to be a compatibility issue because when WooThemes 2.2 comes out later in August or in September, those templates will probably change, and then the it's back onto the theme developer to make sure that things aren't broken, and they stay compatible. So there's a really good feature in there to see if all those templates are up, which are overridden and which are going to be up to date.
Very cool. Well, there's a couple things I'll mention. One is there's a plugin called Genesis Connect for WooCommerce.
Mm-hmm.
That basically it adds theme support for WooCommerce and takes care of some basic templating issues, or not even issues isn't the right word, but just sort of bridges the gap between Genesis and WooCommerce. And the beauty of using a framework like Genesis, where you're using a child theme, you can just inherit all those WooCommerce templates, and really there's no need to reinvent the wheel, because 9 times out of 10 what you're really needing is just to style something, not to unhook it, rehook it, move it around, shape shift. So like with Lauren's theme, actually, sorry if I'm not supposed to say this, I actually got to audit it, which was nice. Really fun, and there's not a single WooCommerce template in it. So the WooCommerce integration comes from adding that theme support for WooCommerce via that Genesis Connect plugin, and then incorporating styles specifically to make the WooCommerce standard template output match the theme.
That's great. That sounds like a much more future-proof strategy for doing that. That's great.
Exactly. I have a site that I worked on where I needed some custom templating, and I don't know, oh god, it's probably been 6 or 8 months ago, but whatever new WooCommerce version came out completely destroyed my templating, so I had to go back and figure out what was going on there.
Yeah, that would be 6 months ago when 2.1 dropped. So, yeah.
Okay, yeah. That was fun, a little scramble. A comment from Tom. He's loving on WooCommerce and hating on WP eCommerce. I will say, Tom, and I'm not an expert on either of these, and Daniel will get your opinion, but WPEC recently had a huge re-release, and that product it's been around for almost the entire time of WordPress. It's a very mature product, if you will, and therefore in its early days was, in fact, a nightmare because I used it. But
yeah, WP e-commerce is like the NC-17 in age, and WooCommerce is sort of still PG-13, but it's a really saucy PG-13. So yeah. It's
saucy, yeah. But if it's been over a year since you've tried WPEC, don't or give it another try before you formally write it off. I know Justin and the team behind that has made a lot of efforts at improvement.
Yeah, I had to tell Justin the other day, like I have not installed WP eCommerce, and like never. And yeah, he gave me the sad face. He gave me the sad panda face. But it's not for not wanting. Like I said earlier, I sort of divested out of JigoShop before working for Woo, and so I just sort of focused all my energy on one platform and one code base. But now that I'm back on my own, I'm opening up to ED, Exchange, WP eCommerce. So it's really since I'm friends with all of the main developers of each of those platforms, I'm not gonna pick one, but I focus on WooCommerce just for the history that I have with it. So.
Come on, we could create some big drama here if you're like, WooCommerce sucks, I choose WPEC.
Yeah.
Got a question on how does WooCommerce compare to non-WordPress platforms like Yahoo stores or is it Shop or BigCommerce?
So when you're talking about WooCommerce versus a Yahoo stores or a BigCommerce, so you're talking about, again, it's .org versus .com. It's self-installed or self-hosted, and you sort of have the control over everything versus you're using a managed site where everything's installed on their site. You're paying a monthly fee. You have a certain level of latitude, but not really. You can't go totally hog wild on changes and things. And it's funny because when I started building e-commerce sites, I started using Magento back in the day, and so that's a whole other topic, and I start shaking when I talk about it, so we're not going to go there. But really you have the beauty is, again, it's the beauty of WordPress. You have a self-hosted site, and with all of the control, as much control as you want, or as much flexibility and customization, as you like as well. So where you can add a plugin to add some functionality to WordPress to do your portfolio or a testimonials page or anything like that. It's the same thing with e-commerce. You have a plugin that you can add in that gives you tons of flexibility, but not a lot of at not a lot of cost of your time, of your brain space. I don't know. So you get all the benefits of a hosted solution, in WordPress with all of the customization and ability to do whatever you like. So the bonuses for going with a hosted solution like BigCommerce or even like a Shopify is that if you just want to get a shop up very quickly and start selling something, just sort of a proof of concept, you could do that. But as you grow, you're going to start running into some limitations and some aggravation with the fees that are charged. If you're running $100,000 a month of revenue through a hosted solution, you're gonna pay quite a bit of fees, and you may not have any negotiating power that you'd like to reduce some of that cost, or you're totally at the mercy of once you start getting popular, you're totally at the mercy of their platforms for staying up and for their platform for to making sure that things are running smoothly. So I just prefer self-hosting. I prefer the flexibility of WordPress. I just prefer doing things where you have control and flexibility.
Yeah, I agree. So just to reiterate that, if you need a quick spin up of one of those hosted solutions is great, but you pay more for that convenience. So if you're in it for the long haul, taking a self-hosted approach with WordPress and something like WooCommerce is a better route to go. Let's see, a question on Braintree. Ever used it? Payment gateway?
I have not used Braintree.
There we go.
That payment gateway got grabbed by the guys over at SkyVerge, so they built it out. So I haven't used it.
All right. Well, we have nothing further to add on that. Question about, and I'm going to butcher, I don't know how to say this, Majira? Maharaja.
It works.
Can you explain in a nutshell what it is and what's behind that comment of it works?
Of it works? What's the context?
Oh no, the context was Tom was asking, what about Majira and SSL for Woo transactions?
Majira drives me crazy because I can't pronounce it. Yeah, so I can't talk about it and not laugh or do a spit take. Okay, so I'm gonna kill the history of Majira, but it was I believe it was, again, they were sort of taking the perceived issue or perceived just monster of security and saying let us take care of all that for you, and it was built into WooCommerce from the beginning. But I never understood the reasoning for it. I understand that they're trying to get payments off, but they seemed like you were inserting another level between your e-commerce site and your payment gateway that doesn't necessarily need to be there. So because they're doing a pass through straight to an authorized.net or to another payment gateway. So I'm probably not the right person to answer it because I don't understand the history or even the reasoning for the platform. I might get an angry tweet or email after that, but it's okay. Hey, there's your Genesis office hours, drama.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah,
drama's great for the ratings.
Yes. Yes. That and I was gonna say taking my shirt off, but nobody wants to see that. So I've never used Midra because I've always used payment gateways that go straight to the payment processor. I want as few moving parts as possible because when something goes wrong, you just want to be able to diagnose it quick and fix the problem. So I'm not the right person to ask about Midra, Madra,
Majah.
Midra.
I always think of what was that movie? Oh, the Moulin Rouge, and there's the evil Maharaja.
Yeah,
Yeah, so every time I see that word, I'm thinking about the evil Maharaja.
that's true.
Let's see. We've got one fresh from Jackie. Payment gateways and security on WordPress. Do we need to be concerned? What steps can we take to secure our data and all that good stuff?
So when you're talking securing e-commerce data, the data that people are concerned about is the credit card information, credit card number, expiration date, CVV, and sometimes the name of the person on the card. So that's where it comes into. So WooCommerce does not store any of that data. WooCommerce, I'll get you a link to the PCI compliance documentation on WooThemes.com. WooCommerce doesn't store any of that data, and they also, but they do. It does sort of pass through the system. So a bit of an issue that happened a couple of months ago at WooThemes.com was that somehow there was a breach, and in possibly, this is sort of just hearsay. They didn't actually say what the problem was. There was probably some breach to where in-memory data was being siphoned out. So as the data was being passed to the payment gateway for approval and then passed back, somebody was copying it. So that's the sort of hunch. I have no idea if that's real or not, and I don't expect WooThemes to talk about it because they shouldn't. But WooCommerce does not save any of that data to the hard drive, to the hard drive or disk. So when you're collecting payment data, if you want to be totally, if you want to collect payments and be totally absolved from any of that payment information, use an off-site processor. Send the customer to a PayPal standard. They handle the payment, collecting the payment, and let you know. They give you a token to say, this is the customer, the payment was good, ship the product. There's a couple of issues on fulfillment on that because there's even fraud related with PayPal standard. So, someone could purchase something, you ship them a product, and then they go to PayPal and say, I've never bought this is fraud, and then you lose the money there. So there's always an inherent security risk as far as selling things online, but you sort of make that part of you try to mitigate as much risk as you can, and then make the rest of it part of your business decisions on how you're going to ship stuff to customers or fulfill. And it's especially interesting with digital products because as far as plugins, like if somebody buys something, they get it immediately, and they can challenge that. They can challenge that transaction or reverse it, and they still have your digital product. So you have to take that into account. But as far as dealing with security and secure data, just do some research, and I'll post a link for Carrie in the show notes. Do your research on what data you need to keep secure and some of the ways to do that. That being said, WooCommerce is a great platform for selling online, and I know Mike and the core team have done a lot of thinking toward keeping stuff secure and making it okay to buy online.
Sweet. There you have it. Let's see. Greg wants to know, and I don't know how close you are to core development, if you know the question to this, but some of the shortcomings in the current WooCommerce version that will be addressed in the next update, or maybe not shortcomings, but feature ads or that sort of thing.
Yeah, so WooCommerce current version is 2.1, and upcoming is 2.2. And the beta for that was just announced and released, and so the beta will go through a couple of the beta phase will be a couple of releases and bug fixes, and then they will have then they'll release the 2.2 version. So some of the cool features that are coming out, and it's not necessarily a shortcoming. Everything's evolving, and they're getting there as fast as they can. But one of the options that they'll have, or one of the features that I'm looking forward to, is in-dash refunds. So someone makes a purchase, and your payment gateway provides a way to do refunds through their API. To this point, you'd have if Carrie, if you bought one of my awesome, vintage WordCamp Grand Rapids T-shirts.
I've already bought 3.
Oh, see, definitely you don't need them then. So if somebody else bought one of my vintage shirts and then they returned it for some reason, I'd have to log into my payment processor to process the refund instead of just sort of keeping my WordPress dashboard up. But in the new version, now the payment gateway will need to upgrade, provide an upgrade to take advantage of this, but they'll have the ability to hit a button and then the refund is processed, and that's either a full refund or a partial refund. So a lot easier, one point of administration for the store owner in that. So refunds is a great option coming up, and it also keeps your reporting inside of WooCommerce balancing. So if you did a refund outside of the store, you refunded 10 shirts because they were defective. They had 3 armholes instead of 2, the standard 2. Your site still shows a dozen sales, but you had to refund 10, so you have to do some accounting outside of that to make everything balanced. So now everything should line up correctly inside of the WooCommerce dashboard. Another thing that's coming out for developers is in 2.1 they released a API for WooCommerce, but mostly it was pulling data out and accessing data. You couldn't create a lot of data via the API. So in the next version of the API, you'll be able to create an order via the API. You'll be able to just do most of the most of the CRUD operations. Create, update, delete, and so it's just another step in the evolution of the API that's going to be really useful. A couple of applications for that I'm looking forward to researching are integrating with your fulfillment center. So say Carrie, you have you have some awesome boots that you sell because you are from Fort Worth, Dallas Metroplex area, and everybody in Texas wears boots apparently. So the Dills boots are selling like hotcakes, and you need to up your sales game. And you set up a fulfillment center over on the East Coast, a fulfillment center over on the West Coast to get those boots there quicker. Your fulfillment centers will be able to hook into your site using that API to pull out order data to know who they need to send the Dills boots to.
Oh, nice.
So yeah.
Wow, you just totally took the wind out of my sails because I was going to make a big announcement about Dills boots.
Sorry, I broke. I broke the intro. Sorry about
that. We've got a few more minutes together, so if you have a question, throw it over to Daniel, and I'll take this moment to make a couple of announcements. Last week in the show notes, I've done a lot of overhauling on my site, so apologies that things were wonky last week. But in my show notes, I threw up a survey asking whether most of you guys listening are freelancers, part of an agency or a small team, or if you're employed somewhere else and do web work, kind of on your own, or just what your situation was. Because I want to, in future episodes, I want to be able to bring on guests and talk about things that obviously you want to hear and that are important to running your business. And survey says that most of you are freelancers. So cool. And I mean, it was like 10% of the page views actually bothered to fill out that form. So I'm not going to take that data to the bank, but that gives me a good clue that a lot of you folks are freelancers. So thank you to the ones of you that took the time to fill that out. I will also say that, homework. What's that?
Everybody else, the dog ate their homework. Those other 90%.
Yeah, the dog eating the digital home. It's like the dog chewed through the cable wire or something.
Mm-hmm.
Just to clarify, Andrea, Daniel did not say that I sell boobs. I sell boots. Boots. Not the kind of boots with the fur. Yeah, and that's actually an awesome segue. I am going to open up Genesis Office Hours for show sponsors and advertisers. A couple of notes on that. One, I know that you guys have given me your trust, and that's a huge honor. So when I consider someone to do a sponsorship or an ad spot, it's very important to me that it's a product I personally trust and can recommend. It would be the opposite of what I want to accomplish to do anything to abuse the trust that you've given me. Secondly, as you can imagine, the hosting of the audio, the production, the time, all that does take money, and I love it. And I want to continue doing it. So I'm opening up the show to sponsors. If you go to carriedeals.com/sponsor, if you're interested in that, and not that I expect you guys to do that. I'm probably looking more at actual companies, not individuals, although you're welcome to. So there you have it. You can sponsor Genesis Office Hours. And let's see, wow, I mean, we just had some terrible derailments between the bedroom camera and the just drama.
And
Let's see, Daniel, any parting thoughts or words of wisdom to dish out?
words of wisdom. I have no wisdom. I was trying to think of something to say in Spanish because I'm in Spanish class all day, but I have major headache after Spanish class because thinking in one language is hard enough. Thinking in two is near impossible. So, words of wisdom. Keep all of your plugins updated and to the current version. Actually, that's sort of funny. So I told you I sold my Authorize.net plugin last year, and I still get 2 or 3 emails per month saying, "Hey, I have this Authorize.net plugin. It says you're the author, and it's not working anymore." Well, they're using 18-month-old code that has been up. They're using a 1.5 version, and the current version's 3.0. And so I love telling those people, I don't sell, this is there's a new version. You need to go get the newest version. So yeah, so best thing on running WordPress and e-commerce is keep your plugins updated to the latest version.
Yes, amen. So WooCommerce Office Hours still happens, right? I mean, it's ongoing. So where can, if people have additional questions about WooCommerce or want to join you for your office hours, how can they do that?
So they can go to my site at daniel.gd, and that I have nothing whatsoever to do with the island of Guam, which is the top level domain. I really like short URLs, and I wanted my name, so that was the only one available. So daniel.gd is where I do WooCommerce office hours and just generally blog things that come into my mind. And then my plugin shop is growdevelopment.com.
Sweet. And then when is office hours? It's weekly?
It's weekly, Tuesdays at 1. I took a couple months off, traveling and doing office hours just didn't work out because my Wi-Fi was here and there, and plus I used to do it on Fridays at like lunchtime Eastern, and that translated into Friday night in Europe. And so the last thing I wanted to be doing was staring at a computer Friday night in Paris. So I sort of canceled it for a couple of weeks, and then I've rebooted it, and we're doing it Tuesdays at 1 Eastern. You
rebooted it or rebooted it?
Rebooted it. Restart.
Just confirming.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in and asking your questions. You guys are awesome. And Daniel, I very much appreciate your time and stopping to chat with us today. Be sure and check over at carriedeals.com/podcast, and you can find the show notes for this sometime soon. And until then, I will see you guys next week. Have a good one.
Thanks, Carrie.